Adah and Kioma had been inseparable since childhood. They shared everything, secrets, dreams, and the kind of laughter that only the closest of friends could understand. Adah, with her captivating beauty, always drew attention wherever she went. She was graceful, charming, and carried herself with an effortless elegance that Kioma admired. Yet, despite this admiration, Kioma couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. Adah always seemed to have everything she wanted: attention, praise, and love. Kioma, by contrast, had always felt like she was in Adah's shadow. When Emeka entered Adah's life, things changed. He was a wealthy businessman with a kind smile, a confident presence, and an undeniable charm. Emeka quickly became enchanted by Adah, and soon they were married. Adah thought she had finally found happiness. Emeka treated her like a queen in public, showering her with gifts and compliments, and for a while she believed her life was perfect. But as time passed, she began to notice cracks in their relationship. Emeka's kindness in public didn't match his behavior behind closed doors. One night, after a public event where Emeka had showered Adah with praise and gifts, they returned home. Adah was tired, but she still forced a smile as Emeka poured her a drink. "Thank you for tonight," Adah said, her voice quiet. Emeka glanced at her, his eyes cold. "It was nothing. You should be grateful. I don't know why you complain so much. You should be perfect all the time." Adah felt a lump form in her throat but pushed it down. "I'm trying, Emeka. I just want us to be happy." He scoffed, a bitter edge to his tone. "Happy? You think this is happiness? Maybe if you were more like Kioma, things would be better." Adah's heart skipped a beat. Kioma, her best friend. Adah had always tried to keep her marriage intact, never letting anyone see the struggles, but Emeka's words stung more than she cared to admit. "You know, Kioma doesn't have to work as hard at being perfect," Emeka continued, his voice laced with disdain. "She's everything I want, beautiful, charming, always the center of attention." Adah felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She forced a smile, trying to hide her hurt. "I'm not Kioma, Emeka. I'm me." Emeka didn't respond. He simply turned his back on her and walked to the other room. Adah was left standing there, trying to understand how her dream marriage had turned into something so painful. Kioma, meanwhile, had begun to feel something change. She was watching Adah's seemingly perfect life, and she couldn't help but notice that things weren't as flawless as Adah made them seem. Behind the smiles, Kioma could sense Adah's unhappiness, but there was no way she could let her know that she had seen it. After all, how could Kioma admit that she envied Adah's life, the one she had always thought she wanted? One evening, as they sat together in Adah's home, Kioma asked, "Adah, are you okay? I've noticed you've been distant lately. You don't look like yourself." Adah smiled, but it was strained. "Oh, I'm just tired, Kioma. You know how it is. Emeka and I have been very busy with work. It's all worth it, though. Our future is looking bright." Chioma's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the unspoken tension. "It's not just about work, though, is it? You've been hiding something. I can tell." Adah shook her head, trying to hide the cracks forming in her smile. "It's nothing, really. I just want to make sure everything is perfect. I don't want to disappoint anyone." Kioma watched her closely, feeling a growing sense of envy. Adah was so determined to make her marriage look perfect, to make it appear as though Emeka was the perfect man, and yet Kioma could see how unhappy Adah was. There was something so painful about watching Adah try so hard. It made Kioma wonder what her life would be like if she had Emeka instead. Kioma started to fantasize about being the one Emeka adored, not Adah. One day, Kioma's jealousy reached its peak. She had seen enough of Adah's public facade and decided she couldn't watch it any longer. In a moment of weakness, she went to a sorceress known for her dark magic. The sorceress was an elderly woman with piercing eyes who looked at Kioma with quiet suspicion. "You want a spell, don't you?" the sorceress asked, her voice deep and unsettling. Kioma nodded. Yes, I want to make Adah less beautiful. I want Emeka to fall in love with me. The sorceress looked at Kioma for a long moment before speaking. There's a price to pay for tampering with such things, child. Beauty is not the real reason why someone loves another, and beauty can't fix what's broken in the heart. I don't care, Kioma snapped. I just want Emeka. I want everything she has. The sorceress sighed, but then nodded. Very well, but be warned. You'll get what you desire, but nothing comes without consequence. That night, the sorceress cast the spell. The next morning, Adah woke up to a nightmare. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, her hair had lost its luster, and her once vibrant eyes were dull and lifeless. She screamed as she saw herself in the mirror, terrified and confused. But when Emeka saw her, his face twisted in disgust. His eyes narrowed, and he looked at her as if she were nothing more than an inconvenience. Look at what you've become, he muttered, his voice cold. You're nothing like the woman I married. Adah tried to explain, but Emeka only mocked her. I have no use for you now. You're a burden. And so, Emeka locked her away in their home, telling everyone that she was ill and couldn't leave. But when they were alone, his cruelty only worsened. Kioma, meanwhile, found herself caught in Emeka's trap. He began to openly court her, showering her with gifts and affection, pretending that he was the devoted husband. But Kioma, blinded by her desire to have everything Adah had, couldn't see the manipulation. Adah overheard one day as Kioma laughed with Emeka, who was whispering sweet words to her. You should have seen her before, Emeka said to Kioma. She was so beautiful, but now she's just a shadow of what she used to be. And you are everything she never was. The words hit Adah like a slap in the face, and for the first time, she realized that everything she had worked for, everything she had tried to protect, was a lie. Emeka had never cared for her. He had only wanted control. Unable to bear the torment any longer, Adah fled the house that night. She ran, not knowing where she was going, until she stumbled upon a town far from her home. There, she met Mama Ezina, an elderly healer who took Adah in. Mama Ezina showed Adah the art of herbal medicine, teaching her how to heal not only the body, but also the soul. With time, Adah began to rediscover her sense of self, and her youth was restored. She found solace in the simple act of helping others, and slowly, she realized that her worth had never been tied to her appearance. She had always been enough. After Kioma had stolen Emeka away from Adah, she believed her life would be filled with the love and happiness she had always desired. She thought that with Emeka by her side, things would be different, that their life together would be everything she had imagined in her fantasies. The once charming businessman who had courted her with sweet words, expensive gifts, and promises of a future filled with luxury seemed like the man of her dreams, but it didn't take long for the reality to set in. The first signs of Emeka's true nature came after they were married. At first, he seemed attentive and loving, though his affection often felt more like an act than something genuine. He would take Kioma to expensive dinners, flaunt their relationship in public, and whisper sweet nothings to her in private. But soon, Emeka began to show a darker side of himself, an angry, controlling side that Kioma had not seen during their courtship. One evening, after a small argument about some business dealings, Emeka slammed his fist on the table, making Kioma jump. "Why are you so difficult?" Emeka snapped, his eyes narrowing with anger. "I've done everything for you. You have everything you could ever want, and yet you complain. What more do you want from me?" Kioma was stunned. She had never seen him like this. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to gather her thoughts. I don't want anything more, Emeka. I just want to be happy. I want us to be happy." His expression twisted into something cold and unrecognizable. "Happiness?" he scoffed. "You think I owe you happiness? You should be grateful for what I've given you, but I can see it now. You'll never be satisfied. You're just like Adah, always wanting more." Kioma's breath caught in her throat. The mention of Adah, the woman Emeka had once been obsessed with, only served to highlight the underlying resentment he harbored toward her. Kioma tried to speak, but Emeka cut her off. "Don't start with your whining. You don't know how good you have it, and you never will," he said coldly before walking away, leaving Kioma standing there in shock. That night, as Kioma lay in bed, she couldn't help but replay the words Emeka had said. What had she gotten herself into? The man who had once promised her the world had turned into someone unrecognizable, someone who now treated her with the same disdain he had shown Adah. But the worst part was that Kioma couldn't escape him. Emeka's power and influence over her were absolute. Every time she tried to speak up or ask for something different, he would shut her down with harsh words or give her the cold shoulder. He had made her feel like she was never enough, no matter how hard she tried. Emeka, it turned out, wasn't just cruel to Adah. He was cruel to everyone. It wasn't just the emotional abuse that wore on Kioma. It was the constant fear. Emeka began to control her every move, keeping her isolated from her friends and family. She wasn't allowed to go anywhere without his permission, and when she did go out, he would often appear unannounced, acting possessive and demanding, as though she were nothing more than a prize he had claimed. "Where do you think you're going?" Emeka would ask whenever Kioma tried to step out. "Don't you know that you belong to me now? No one else will ever want you. You're mine." It was clear to Kioma that Emeka didn't love her at all. He only wanted to control her, to possess her. She was living in a gilded cage, trapped in a marriage she had once dreamed of, but now realized was nothing more than a nightmare. Meanwhile, Adah had started to rebuild her life, and it wasn't long before she found someone who loved her genuinely. One afternoon, as Adah was walking through the town to gather herbs for her medicine, she met Gozy, a humble farmer who lived just outside of town. He was kind and down to earth, with a warm smile that seemed to brighten every room he entered. He had noticed Adah several times, observing how she always carried herself with grace and quiet strength. There was something about her, something that drew him to her, beyond her appearance. One day, as Adah was sorting through some herbs, Gozy approached her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice gentle and sincere. "I've seen you around here before. You're the one who helps the villagers, right?" Adah looked up, surprised by the kindness in his tone. "Yes, I help when I can. It's my way of giving back." Gozy smiled, his eyes warm. "I've heard many good things about you. You've helped so many people. I wanted to say thank you." Adah felt a sudden warmth in her chest. "It's nothing, really. I just do what I can." "I don't think it's nothing," Gozy replied, stepping closer. "You've helped people. You've healed them. And that's something special." Adah was taken aback by his words. It wasn't often that people acknowledged her efforts in such a heartfelt way. For the first time in a long while, Adah felt a sense of appreciation for who she was, not just for what she had once looked like. "Thank you, Gozy," Adah said softly, her heart fluttering slightly. "That means more to me than you know." As the days went on, Adah and Gozy began to spend more time together. He would visit her as she worked with herbs, bringing her fresh ingredients and asking her about her healing methods. In turn, Adah began to open up to him about her past, about her marriage to Emeka and the pain she had endured. Gozy listened without judgment, offering words of comfort when she needed them most. "You're strong, Adah," Gozy said one evening, as they sat together on a hill overlooking the village. "You've been through so much, but you're still standing. That takes a kind of strength most people don't have." Adah looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt like someone worthy of love, someone who could heal and move forward. As time passed, Gozy's affection for Adah deepened. He cared for her not just because of her strength, but because of her heart. And Adah, in turn, began to realize that she had found something she had never experienced in her marriage to Emeka, a love that was genuine, patient, and kind. One evening, as they walked along the riverbank, Gozy stopped and took Adah's hands in his. Adah, he said softly, his voice filled with sincerity, I've never met anyone like you. You've taught me so much about life, about strength and kindness, and I've come to care for you deeply. Adah looked up at him, her heart racing. I care for you too, Gozy, she replied, her voice full of emotion. You've shown me what real love looks like. Gozy smiled, pulling her gently into a hug. Then let's build a future together, Adah. A future where you are valued, not for your appearance, but for the person you are inside. Adah felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she felt truly loved. She knew that Kelechi was different from Emeka. He valued her for the right reasons. Months later, Kioma came to the village, seeking forgiveness. She found Adah working in the clinic, her hands full of herbs as she treated the sick. The woman before her was unrecognizable, not in appearance but in strength. Adah looked up when she saw Kioma, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Kioma, Adah said softly, I have forgiven you, but I cannot trust you anymore. You betrayed me, you stole from me, and I will never forget that. Kioma's eyes filled with tears. I was wrong, Adah. I should never have done what I did. I've learned that too late. I thought I wanted what you had, but now I see. I see the damage I've caused. Adah's face softened slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. You cannot undo what you've done. We can never be friends again. You've shown me that trust is something that can't be rebuilt once it's shattered. Kioma nodded, knowing deep down that Adah was right. I understand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Adah turned away, continuing her work. She had learned the most painful lesson of all. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes, it means moving on and leaving the past behind. As time passed, Adah grew stronger, her confidence unwavering. She found a new purpose in helping others and learned that her happiness didn't depend on the approval of anyone, not even Emeka or Kioma. She had built a new life, one that was founded on self-respect and resilience.